What's going on, YouTube? And welcome back here to another day here in touring the parks. And today we're back in the Magic Kingdom, and of course we are looking at a classic again today. Today we're looking at Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress in the Magic Kingdom in Tomorrowland. This attraction actually got a second video because this is the second shooting of me making this video. The first one I made about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and of course within the past week we just got a massive amount of news about the future of Carousel of Progress, and I figured today would be the perfect day to remake this video because a lot has changed about the future of this attraction. So we're going to start off in terms of touring like we always do. We're going to look at the past and what the inspiration and the blueprint of this attraction were to where it got us to where we are today. And obviously it goes all the way back to Walt Disney. Walt Disney, perfect. I mean, listen, attractions with Walt Disney's name on it, there is a reason for it. And this attraction is a really good example up there with the Enchanted Tiki Room, with just how much Walt's impact, how much he had an impact on this attraction. And really, this attraction is the start of what became Walt Disney World in total, which is kind of insane when you think about it. So we're going to start off back in 1964 in Progress Land, and that was a portion of the New York World's Fair in Flushing Meadows, Queens, which is about 45 minutes from me. And that's where the story begins. This was a pavilion, Progress Land, in the World's Fair. And in 1967, Walt ended up moving the attraction to Disneyland. And the attraction was in Disneyland for a pretty long time. It closed in 1973. And then in 1975, the attraction opened in the Magic Kingdom in Tomorrowland, where it is today and has been ever since. Now, what's interesting, we saw the first real update to this attraction in the 80s. It was 1981. Was the final scene was updated to represent the 1980s as the current or the future. That was the first real update we saw to the attraction. And then in 1985 we saw a little bit more of an overhaul, major show updates and script changes. In 1994 we saw the next version, which debuted with the updated finale, which was more about the future of what we saw in 1994. And then in the present, we are continuing to see this attraction see some massive changes, and we're going to get to that here in a second, because this is like the complete overhaul of this attraction that we have pretty much been waiting for a while now. And so the first scene is now, so the current version, which is going to close on July 5th of 2026, we're going to see a brand new Walt Disney audio animatronic installed in this attraction, which is extremely exciting. And that's going to be in the first scene. And then in Act 1, you're going to see the 1960s. And it's going to be where we are going to watch the family witness the moon landing. And that's kind of where the story is now going to begin. Instead of starting in the mid-1900s, you know, going back to 1900 or 1910 or 1920, it's going to start in the 60s. And then in Act 2, we're going to see the continuation of Halloween Night, but from 1985. And we will join the family for Halloween Night. And that's definitely going to be a little bit different. It sounds like the lead in this scene is going to actually be the mother, which again, showing the progression of women and women's empowerment during the 80s. Which I think is kind of an interesting nod. And they're going to have that in Scene 2. Scene 3 is going to take us to the new millennium. And I'm sure there's going to be a couple Y2K jokes in there. But that's going to be where we're going to celebrate with the family on New Year's Eve of 1999 going into 2000. And then Act 4 is going to go into the future and the possible future. And we will join the family for a brand new scene, which is going to have them pretty much traveling into another planet and living in another planet. So humans living on another planet. It's probably safe to say that's going to be a future that is pretty safe, and probably not something that's going to happen in the next 10 years for Disney to update the attraction. So they're probably going to be safe with that addition. And it kind of reminds me of Horizons, which is another attraction that used to be in Epcot and kind of focused on, you know, humans living on another planet and living, you know, underwater, living on another planet. And I think it's kind of a nice throwback to Horizons, which I'm sure a lot of people are really going to love that addition. Now, another kind of interesting thing, you know, Walt Disney had such a huge impact on this attraction. There's video online of Walt Disney with John, the main character in the Carousel of Progress. I mean, this is a massive change for Tomorrowland, and I think this is kind of the next, you know, kind of shot across the bow for the new Tomorrowland. And I think what's interesting is, you know, Tomorrowland in the Magic Kingdom, I kind of talked about this in the last video, but, you know, the Magic Kingdom is kind of like in a weird place. It's the Tomorrowland that we thought it was going to be in the 1960s, and it's not really the Tomorrowland that we think the future is actually going to be. And I think Disney's kind of embracing that more, because I hate to say it, in 2026, I think people's view on the future is actually pretty dim. So it's almost a nostalgia factor looking at, you know, what the future looked like for us in the 60s, and maybe it's almost an inspiration for how we could maybe start to look at the future again one day, because I think most people's view on the future is not very bright. So I think it's kind of just embracing the nostalgia of what we thought tomorrow would look like back in a more contemporary time, if that makes sense, right? During the 70s and the 60s. And I think Disney's kind of embracing that. Instead of always trying to update this land to be the next version of what we think tomorrow's going to be, it's just the nostalgia Tomorrowland. And it's easier to maintain that land compared to what we actually think the future's going to be, right? And I think they're doing a pretty good job of that so far. They've updated Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin. That's not going away anytime soon. I think now that we're seeing some changes to the facade of the People Mover, right? They've been changing little decals and things like that. Obviously, the big change to Carousel of Progress is a big deal. So this is going to be the next big change. And then looking at the future of Tomorrowland, I mean, I probably could do this in an entire video, and I've made videos on it before, but I think Tomorrowland is going to be very interesting over the next 10 years for the Magic Kingdom. I think we're going to see something new coming to Monsters, Inc. in this area, because they are going to have their own land. Do they really need the laugh floor? Probably not. And I don't think really a lot of people care about the laugh floor, right? So we're probably going to see the laugh floor leave. And I think we could see something coming to Stitch's Great Escape. I think these two areas are very prime real estate in the Magic Kingdom. Disney's going to have to do something with these two areas. And then beyond that, I think it's pretty safe to say we're going to see some changes in terms of Space Mountain. You know, they just recently updated Big Thunder Mountain, and I think the next big attraction that's going to get a refurb, and now that they have Tron open, I think we're going to see a major retracking of Space Mountain in the next 3 years. We're going to get that announcement, and it's going to be pretty extensive work coming to Space Mountain, because they're going to have to completely take out the track, retrack the attraction. It's going to be a pretty intense overhaul. And then comes the future of, you know, the Speedway, because I think the Speedway is definitely the next thing on the chopping block. I mean, it's a very fun attraction, but I just look at all this real estate, just how much space there is here. Disney could do a ton of work with this space, and I just think it's only a matter of time before Disney decides that the Speedway is going to go, and they're going to put something new in its place. So I guess it's more of a game of we're going to have to wait and see. But I'm really interested. I think, you know, we're talking about the entire land of Tomorrowland, but I think you have to when we talk about the Carousel of Progress. And I think the Carousel of Progress gives me hope because of the way that they're keeping the attraction. I think there's a lot of good that can come to Tomorrowland. It's definitely one of my favorite lands in the Magic Kingdom. And I think with what Disney wants to do with the Carousel of Progress gives me a lot of faith in what they could do with the rest of the land, if that makes sense. And like I said, they have the entire area for the Speedway. They're going to be redoing the Carousel of Progress, and they actually have a giant Tomorrowland theater back here, which I'm sure they would love to add a new attraction or something back here, because they have all this prime real estate that they could really add something special back here, right? So we'll see what they end up doing, but I'm really excited. And now we've gotten a little bit more confirmation on the future of this attraction. And this is one of the longest running shows in American history, which is pretty insane. But again, this thing opened in 1964. It's run the most shows of any other show in American history. The amount of updates that we've seen are going to pale in comparison to what we're seeing with this new version, but I'm really excited for it. And like I said, July 5th will be the last day of this attraction. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Are you excited for the new version of the Carousel of Progress? Are you nervous? I think I have a little bit more faith in this version of Disney than the one maybe 3 or 4 years ago trying to do this project, but they have a lot of work to do in the Magic Kingdoms, Tomorrowland, and Disneyland. And I think they're going to have to those Imagineers are going to have to do some work to reinvent and reinvigorate people's excitement for Tomorrowland. And, like I said, they got to put something in the laugh floor. They got to put something in the Old Stitch area. And like I said, the Speedway could be on the chopping block. And what we could see from a new version of Space Mountain, it definitely gives me a little bit of optimism and excitement for what could be coming to this land in the future. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys again next time.